You, after my wife.
Yes.
This is February 14th, 2022. If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our invocation by Councilmember Gulick. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Creator, or by whatever name we invoke that animates, motivates, and comforts us, we are grateful for this wondrous place we are privileged to call home, with its beautiful sun-drenched rim rocks embracing us and the braided Yellowstone River that quenches us. We are grateful for the hard work of those we know and the many more we don't know. Somehow, through all our collective efforts, we have a city that, for most of us, functions pretty darn well. We are also grateful for a spirit of friendliness and solidarity that generally unites us and allows us to work together toward common goals. But we are challenged by forces from within and without that seek to divide us, sometimes seemingly seeking no higher goal than discord and division. And many of us are challenged by feelings of hopelessness or despair. And some of us resort to substances that strain our connection to humanity and all that is good. And we are also challenged by the impact our past and present actions have on all other creation, the birds, fish, animals, and insects that are our fellow travelers on this wondrous planet we are blessed to call home. Grant us the wisdom and fortitude to address these challenges. Grant us the strength to pull us from our pits of despair and the humanity to restore our purpose and passion in ourselves and those around us. We are blessed with a multitude of life experiences and ideas. Grant us the patience to listen and understand these different perspectives and the wisdom to make decisions that bring the greatest good. May we find the path forward for our community that, for all of us and all creation, functions pretty darn well. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Tony, if you would call the roll, please.
Councilmember Shaw. Councilmember Shaw.
We're barely hearing you. There, I think the volume's coming up. Try again.
Councilmember Shaw.
Yes.
Councilmember Gulick.
Here.
Neese.
Here.
Owen.
Here.
Joy.
Present.
Chariki.
I'm here.
Tidswell.
Here.
Purinton.
Present.
Boyette.
Here.
Rupsis.
Here.
Mayor Cole.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. First order of business are minutes, both of which are pending. So we do not have any minutes before us. Those are being revised to be brought into the new format, the more abbreviated version, I understand. And presumably those will be available for approval at our next business meeting. When it comes to council courtesies, I just want to remind everyone that we have a central mic here. And it doesn't pick up as well as our individual microphones in City Hall. So please keep your voice up. If you can, direct it toward the center there. And most importantly, though, just keep your voice up. Reminder, our security exits are at the various doors, including the storage double doors back there. That's also an exit, as well as the ones behind me and the ones out to the courtroom or the courtyard out there. First item up then, next would be, and also a reminder, if you're making comments at the microphone at the podium, please try to speak loudly and speak directly into the microphone, and then it'll pick you up a lot better. Council courtesies, I'm going to start with just one item, and that is to recognize my friend and longtime city volunteer and good citizen Daryl Tunnicliffe, who died on Thursday. He was a member of our planning board for many years and served on virtually every nonprofit board in this town, I think. Always faithfully and with kindness, and much appreciated. He will be sorely missed. Other council courtesies this evening, are there any? Do not see any, so we don't have any proclamations. Council reports, any reports from groups that the council serves on behalf of the city that they'd like to report on at this time? Don't see any council reports, so our city administrator, Chris, do you have any report before we get into public comment on non-public hearing items?
Gavin really doesn't want us meeting at the library. Work on the technology challenge. So I've did just a couple of brief things. So on Friday, we did revise the agenda for a couple of things in front of you tonight. First, there was a late receiving George Warmer's Board of Adjustments application. We did make that change, so if you went out online over the weekend or today, his name is there. It is included, as well as we seem to have gotten mixed up between Belgrade and Belfry. We sold our fire trucks to Belfry. Belgrade no longer needs fire trucks from their neighboring communities gifted to them, so they're doing quite well. But Belfry was, that was a mistake there. On consent agenda item 1K, that was a very generous donation. As a staff, I think we'll work to give a little bit more information to the council. I want you to know, and the public, that this gift was vetted by the staff. In other words, we want to make sure that the gifter isn't expecting some kind of favor. As a result, under state law, that would be a problem, whether it was $10 or in this case, a very generous gift of $10,000. But in this case, it is a citizen who just genuinely wanted to show her appreciation for years of service from the city, and she wanted to remain anonymous. So law allows us to grant her that, but in the future, we'll do a little bit more in the memo to let you know, kind of that it has been vetted. We just don't take gifts and not think at all about whether there's any expected strings to be attached to them. And last, there were no ex parte communications received after 3 today. So, Mayor, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item then is public comment on non-public hearing agenda items, which tonight is everything on our agenda because there are no public hearings. So for anybody in the audience who does not have a copy of our agenda, I see some paper back on the shelf back there, or the display case. I assume that that's a copy of the agenda if you don't have one. But what that means is this will be the time to receive public comment on anything on our agenda tonight, including any of the sub-items on our consent agenda, and also item number 2, which is the tax income and financing assistance request from Griffin Development. So if anybody would like to comment, please come forward. We just ask that you go to the podium, tell us your name and address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes and speak into the microphone. Mr. Brooks.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council, and happy Valentine's Day. My name is Dan Brooks. I'm the Business Advocacy Director at the Billings Chamber of Commerce. Coming before you this evening in support of agenda item number 2, the TIF.
You turn it on.
It wasn't.
We're not here.
About now.
I mean, I can hear him.
We can hear you because you've got a good voice. I'm not sure. Doesn't sound like.
Speak very loudly.
We got to get over to the pizza box. So yeah.
Into here.
There you go.
All right. I'll do that again here. My name is Dan Brooks with the Billings Chamber of Commerce. I do our business advocacy. Coming before you tonight in support of agenda item number 2, the TIF application for what I'm told is now named the Old Town Flats. I suspect you probably had time to read the letter that I had sent last week, so I won't belabor a few of the more obvious points of why this is going to be beneficial for our community, namely additional housing that is much needed. This fits well within the city's growth plan, in particular that infill development that is right next to existing city services. But I also wanted to talk about some of the CPTED, the crime prevention through environmental design benefits of this additional residential development. First, just bringing in additional residential development brings additional eyes to the street of people who live in the area. Not only do they exist there and spend some time during the day, but obviously they go back at night and provide a better element of natural surveillance throughout the evening hours. So right off the bat, we've got a SEPTED benefit there. Secondly, the inclusion of balconies on the property really helps to amplify that natural surveillance by giving residents an activity area that really has a great point to see out around the surrounding neighborhood. So we'd like to call out that as being a great SEPTED benefit. And then lastly, the development calls for some public art in the back alleyway on the garage door entrances, which not only help to just provide a great amenity, show off some of that cultural flavor from our area, but it also helps to drive traffic, other users perhaps, kids getting their senior photographs taken there into the area. Very similar to what the DVA does with their light bike program, bringing people into what might otherwise be sort of negative activity generation areas. So for those reasons, we believe this could be a great project that really helps to create a great aesthetic into our downtown corridor, and ask that you take this under consideration and pass this TIF application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Go ahead and proceed to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Katie Easton, and I'm the CEO of the Downtown Billings Alliance. You will hear tonight from the Downtown Billings Partnership, just one of 4 organizations that we manage for the Downtown Billings Alliance. The partnership manages the Urban Renewal District and the Tax Increment Financing District, but on top of that, we also manage the Downtown Billings Association, which is a membership association advocating for businesses that are downtown. We also manage the Business Improvement District in downtown. Our 2 main initiatives within that program are clean and safe programs. We also manage community innovations, and so I'd like to speak briefly on why this project, the agenda item number 2 for Griffin Development, is so important for those 3 projects, or for those 3 organizations. The Business Improvement District works so hard to make downtown Billings to be a safe and attractive place to visit, not only for visitors, but residents and businesses alike. Each property owner within the Business Improvement District pays an assessment on their property taxes that comes back into our organization. We have high hopes to be able to add a 3rd officer this coming year to the Business Improvement District. And so a property like this that is developed and pays a property tax into that assessment is very beneficial for us to make a program like that come to fruition. An active space is also a safer space. Dan spoke on that a little bit through the SEPTED principles, but we believe that a building that is active, a building that is developed, that has residents in it 24 hours a day will be visible, eyes on the street, and it does make for a safer place on all of those reasons that Dan spoke on before. As a business owner downtown, we know that a project like this is also beneficial for them. That high density of residential units also brings high density for the businesses. They spend money downtown. They stay downtown to do their shopping, to have dinner, to go and be entertained at any of the number of venues that we have down here. And so that higher density is good for all businesses alike. And for community innovations, again, this goes back to those safety principles. An active space is a safer space, and that's going to be safer for all of our residents and also those who are on the streets and who need attention as far as mental health disorders, addiction, and temporary homelessness. And so we're able to do all of those programs because of the other programs that exist. And some of that is increased and encouraged and higher developed because of developments like this. And so I encourage you on behalf of the Downtown Billings Association, the Business Improvement District, and Community Innovations that you do support this tax increment financing grant. We do believe that it will be a valuable asset to our downtown. And we're excited to see what happens after that. So thank you for your support tonight, and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good evening, members of the City Council, Mayor Cole. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. My name is Brittany Hunter. I'm the sales manager for Coldwell Banker the broker and co-owner. Our brand has served Billings for over 35 years, as well as I've had almost 17 years of the real estate experience in our community. I come before you today to provide you with a few key and highlighted statistics that the current residential challenges are facing in our community. If you don't know it, we are low on inventory, significantly. As of currently today, we only have 88 active available listings throughout our entire community, and that is at all price points. If you go back to some of the historical data, Billings has been a median absorption rate closely to about the 20%, with 800 to 900 active listings across the board. If you have 20%, you have about a seller's median market with a buyer shift. If you go below that, 15, it's a buyer's market. We are seeing results of between 35 to almost 40% absorption rate, meaning we don't have any inventory. What does that mean for people wanting to come to our community? We, as Coldwell Banker, we are a partner with the largest relocation company called Partis. We consistently see relocation companies come in because they're trying to bring in businesses or executives into the community. When they do that, they need to find housing for them. We have seen them come in and we have seen them leave because there is nothing for them, not to buy or nothing to rent for a safe spot. So when they get here, they love our community, and that gives them a chance to actually find housing for them to stay and them to grow. So I wanted to point those key points out of that. I also wanted to give you some statistics in regards to what a recent Move Abuda article came out in regards to, they're showing that we are one of the top states that they reflected on at a 73% moving into Montana. Within Montana, Billings was number 1 on their list at a 3.9 inbound to a 1 outbound. Where do we house? Where do we place them? This number 2 on your agenda today talks about not only is it just for single family residences to be purchased, but it allows people to come in, move in, find ability, so when they move to purchase, we have a place to land. Currently right now, some other statistics that I have heard from various economic seminars, I'm talking to Big Sky EDA, we're about 2 decades behind construction. That's just on a normal standard construction. Single family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brittany, I apologize. Could you tell us the number of listings? I think that's where you sort of started, and I want to make sure I got that right.
So currently, as of today, active listings, we have 88. That is across the county at all price points. That is actively available. That's not under contract. That's actively available.
And that would be single-family homes and condos, all residential units, only 88 in the entire Yellowstone County.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I know, I'm sales. I talk a lot. Get all out really hot.
Good evening, George Warmer. I'm Brittany's partner at Coldwell Banker, the brokers. I'm also co-owner of Coldwell Banker Commercial. We've got 9 full-time commercial agents, 25 residential agents, and I also have my Big Sky EDA board member hat on tonight in support of item number 2. Obviously, it's a pretty dire situation in the residential side. That bleeds over, of course, into multifamily, and we have kind of a vicious cycle going on. Buyers can't get into homes, so they've got to rent. That puts pressure on the multifamily market. What happens? Sellers who are on the sidelines wanting to come into the market are careful on two categories. One, can they find a replacement house? And if they can't find a replacement house, can they rent? Well, no, they can't on either front. So we're keeping a lot of sellers on the sidelines. So we've got this issue going on, and we need some relief. Now, we've got some good news on the multifamily front, primarily on the west end. We have over 1,000 units that are in the plans and stages of being built in multiple phases. But that's a good 2-year endeavor. Historically, we're looking at 400 to 500 new units, apartment units that are needed in our market based on a 1 to 1.5% growth in population. So you imagine we're growing considerably faster than that. So our need for multifamily is accelerating. Even with those over 1,000 units coming on, it is not going to meet our future demand. What it's not going to do as well is it's not going to necessarily help us downtown. We need people living downtown to support our retail and our services, and that's why we need a project like Mr. Griffin's to help us out. I mean, I got to commend him for his vision and frankly his courage. And he's facing primarily two issues that we always face downtown. One is the assemblage of property. You have diverse owners with diverse motivations, and you also have very high price expectations. That's why we're building on the West End, just Econ 101. So to get it done downtown, we need a public-private partnership, and this is the perfect example of what can be done successfully, and it's a great model. And I think if we support it, not only are we going to have a successful project, but we're going to show other developers, most importantly, that this works and can work for them, and hopefully we can replicate that, because we need more than just this project downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment, please help yourself to the podium.
I don't have much of a voice. Can you hear me okay?
Sound good.
My name is Mike Scher. I own some property on Montana Avenue. Been down there about, I think, close to 35 years, buying stuff, fixing it up. In fact, in the good old days, you just bought it and fixed it up and rented it out. Now it's a little bit more difficult. But things are going very, very well. The property that they're looking at right now is where Wayland Tire is located. That building will be replaced and apartments being put in. And I also point out that the apartments also include parking, which is going to be at the lower levels and some of it behind the thing. So the most important thing to any business, especially downtown, is parking. You don't go someplace unless you can park your car. So that's going to be taken care of. So it's we're really in favor of it. In fact, Montana Avenue, we have our own little group of historic Montana Avenue businesses and renters. We get together once or twice a month to discuss what we can do. In fact, we just, last summer, we hired a security guard that was on from 7 in the morning till about 8 o'clock in the evening. And we found a tremendous decrease in the indigent population because we just tell them to go someplace else. And they seem to be doing that. So it's worked out very well, and it's not costing us too much, probably about a couple $1,000 a week or something on that order. And we have a bunch of property owners and renters that are, kicking into the pot to pay for it. Also, just another thing which just recently happened, music venue, Craft Local, was located on the street where Computers Unlimited is. We rented that out to the Carlin facility, and they've been there now 2 weekends, and the first weekend was just packed, and really good environment, all Montana musicians, no cover, so we get a lot of people coming in there. I'm really pleased to see that it's coming back to what it was when we first started. But anyhow, so I'm really supporting Max's development in the Wayland Tire half block. And especially that it's going to be some more parking there too, which is what everybody needs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Mike, would you give us your address, please?
The downtown
Or residential address.
1109 North 32nd, and Computers Unlimited is 2407 Montana Avenue.
Okay. Thank you. Next, please. And I'll just comment, we probably would not be here if it hadn't been for Mike Scheer's own courage and vision 30 years ago.
Good evening, Council. Steve Arviskow with Big Sky Economic Development. I have two quick things for you. One related to item number 2 I want to share with a little more detail and echo George's comment from Big Sky Economic Development Board of Directors. I'll do that first, and then I just have one other business item with Council that I'll share with you. The board did vote on February 10th, our last Thursday board meeting, to support this project. It was a unanimous vote of the board, and then we assigned George the duty of coming and reporting on behalf of the board, but it was more so in his position of expertise in the industry of real estate and having worked in this community in this capacity for years. I want to share with you quickly why the board at Big Sky Economic Development felt so adamant about this particular project. Max is taking a risk. We've acknowledged that. Following in Mike's footsteps, nothing happens in our community unless the private sector takes a risk. But frankly, nothing can happen in our downtown core unless there's a willingness to partner. Or we'll continue to send most of our housing stock to the west end of our community. Downtowns, if you look across the country, are a unique opportunity and challenge for most communities. It takes some partnership to get past some of those barriers. And so your willingness to use tax increment finance in partnership with the risk-taking of the private sector is absolutely essential if it's to move forward. I can also tell you the timing is absolutely perfect. If there is such a thing these days, you're seeing more investment in our healthcare corridor. You'll see more investment in the 5 years to come than you've probably seen in the last decade. Hundreds of millions of dollars of more private investment, which means hundreds of more jobs. We don't want all of them to live on the West End. Most of the new young talent that is coming to work in the medical corridor will want a walkable experience. And they want our downtown core to be strong while the medical corridor continues to invest. I can also tell you the timing is right because right now Billings is in relatively competitive position, believe it or not. Even though we're seeing our prices rise and our housing stock low, we're still in a position where if we make the right strategic decisions today, we can put ourselves in a competitive advantage for attracting and retaining talent, which is so essential to our community. Our board adopted strategic priorities in 2020. We're about ready to adopt those again, as you will as a council. Top of our list in 2020 was trying to help support, capitalize on the development of our medical corridor by developing our downtown so that there's some synergy in how that development. I can tell you I just read the survey results that I got back from 224 respondents. And again, the incentivizing of our downtown development was on the top of that list. So I would encourage your due consideration, as I know you'll provide with respect to item number 2. Just quickly, a business item for you. We'd love to have one of the council members serve on the EDA board as ex officio. I don't know if you've had the chance to take that up, but if you would, discuss that at some point and then make your recommendation to the county commissioners. They'll actually then appoint your recommended person to serve as ex officio on our board of directors. And as you know, Sean Brown, former Councilman Brown, was very active on our board of directors, and we would encourage likewise one of you taking on that role. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Steve. Additional public comment on any item, number 1 or number 2 on our agenda this evening? Is there any other public comment? Any other? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and proceed then to item number 1, our consent agenda. We'll start off with separations. Council, do you have any separations from item number 1? Councilmember Joy.
Thank you. I would like to separate 1S1 and 2 for the purposes of abstaining from the vote. My brother works for Warren Transport.
Thank you very much. Other separations? Are there any other separations? Councilmember Neese.
I move to approve the items of the consent agenda as modified by adding George Warner to the Board of Advocates, changing the name of the city from Belfry to Belgrade, and separation of item 1S1 and 2.
Thank you very much. I see abundance of seconds. Councilmember Purington. All right, we'll move ahead then with the remainder of the non-separated items. Is there discussion on any of those items? Councilmember Purington.
Thank you. We have a new Citizen Police Advisory Board, and those applicants were decided upon through a subcommittee that the mayor led. And I just wanted to thank the 22 applicants that did apply for this. It was a great group of people to choose from. And I also want to acknowledge Carrie Boyder and the steering committee that made this, that put the board together to discuss various issues with it. And also to Chief St. John, because without his support and encouragement, that would not have happened. That board would not even have gone through. So I just want to thank the people that were really had a big hand in forming this. And we'll see how it goes. It's for 4 years. And then after that, we'll review it. So we'll see how it goes. So thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion, Councilmember Neese.
Thank you. Chris, I don't know if you saw this email that I sent you regarding item J, the acceptance of the hazard material. It says that it's a grant of $64,100, but I believe the grant's for $51,280, and the match is total then equals $64,100. Do we need to correct that to the grant amount since it's for receiving the grant?
I'm looking at the memo, and yes, the total project is 64,1. Looks like the grant, as you just stated, was 51,280. So the question is, do you want that you want to clarify that it's not a $64,000 grant, but it's a apparently $52,000 grant for a $65,000 project.
Okay, just for clarification, I'll make the motion to make that amendment to the consent agenda. So it's changing on the consent agenda.
Okay, the second, I think, was made by Councilmember Purington. Friendly amendment, good with our second?
Absolutely.
Okay, that clarification. Further discussion, Councilmember Boyette.
Mayor, I brought this up before, but over the last many years, I've seen that we don't receive as many applications as we've always had in the past. Animal control, parking, traffic control. I was wondering if there's any way that the staff or someone could say some of these boards maybe could be merged together or even eliminated if we can't get enough people to support them. Maybe they're not that important for the public. Just an observation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we've come back to that, and I know there's some discussion on a couple of those, but I would encourage staff. Every board has a staff liaison, so they're well placed to make that judgment about whether they think, if it's not statutorily required, whether we have that option. Always good to reconsider their existence, I would say. Further discussion on any of the items? I guess I would just want to second what Councilmember Purington said about we had over 20 applications for the Citizen Police Advisory Board. Very qualified people. The only difficult thing about the process was the people that we were not able to add to that board. Many of whom had great experience in the steering committee, in the world of law enforcement. It was sort of an abundance of riches, but there was a consensus on a general mix, so we do appreciate everybody's efforts there. The only thing else I would also comment on is the Councilmember Neese initiated some discussion by email about our anonymous donor. Of course, we want to express our appreciation to that donor. Very much appreciated. Long term, though, I guess I would support some discussion about whether we need policies to establish Gina's email that cites us to a statute that requires, I forget how it's put, public interest. We're allowed to receive gifts pursuant to a public interest with conditions. Presumably one of those conditions would be anonymity, but we may want to develop some standards for how we define what public interest, who would be involved in making that determination, those sorts of things. I think those are perfectly legitimate questions. Further discussion on any other items, Councilmember Neese?
Yeah, since you brought that up, I want to also appreciate the donor who came forward and is donating the money to the city. We'd get a lot of donations, and that's how a lot of the city gets done. So I really appreciate that. I don't want to impede that process and so I would support some type of policy coming forward on that. But again, thank you to the donors who do give to the city. We get a lot of different ones, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, and one of the reasons to pursue that is with the possible construction of a Southside recreation area, very large project. I would anticipate a need for significant private donations, some of which may need to be anonymous. So how we handle that. Also would not ignore the fact that we're sitting in a building that probably would not exist, but for several large anonymous donations. So much appreciated. Further discussion on the motion, Councilmember Purington.
Well, there was some, and I think you brought it up in one of your emails about item number E of the extraction and treatment of methane gas. And I see that Debbie's on the line there, so maybe it would be good for her to explain the disparity in how much we get and how much they get.
If we can do that, if Debbie, you are with us, you did send us a detailed memo with which we appreciate, but many may not have seen that. So if you would not assume that we've seen that because it only arrived in the last 1 to 2 hours. So Debbie Melling, our Public Works Director.
So the computer broke out. For
Debbie, we're going to turn up your volume. We're having a little problems hearing you, or... Okay, try that.
The presentation computer glitched for a second when Councilmember Purington was talking. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'll take the liberty and just asking if you could comment on why this is a fair deal for the city, given the 85% to MDU, 15% to city split. And I was saying that although you sent us a detailed email, it only arrived within the last maybe 2 hours. And so I'm sure some members of the council have not seen that. So if you would, don't assume that we've seen that email.
Okay. We did a lot of research on that 85-15 split, and what it was based on is mineral rights, which are pretty typical. We did look at a lot of other communities and saw that some of them basically enter into a lease agreement with gas companies to do this service for them, but they just have a lease agreement. They don't have a split of the revenue. Other communities are at about a 90-10 split. Some have a little bit more, but they're taking on more ownership, more operations. So looking at all that, we really think that the 85-15 is the right split. And then I did go into some basic discussion about the contract as a whole, and I don't know if you want me to go into that or just the split is what you want to hear.
I'll leave it to Councilmember Purington. You asked the question.
Nope, I think that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, we're okay. Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to approve the non-separated items.
Yeah.
Councilmember Neese.
Just want to remind the council there was a work session about that item 1E late last year. This council didn't see it, but the prior council did. So I also emailed Debbie, and I was satisfied with what she provided. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? Don't see any. We'll proceed to a vote. Again, the motion is for approval of the non-separated items with the friendly amendment to add George Wormer's name to the Board of Adjustments and change Belgrade to Belfry on item 1H. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Our first separated item then are the bills for the week of January 3 and January 10, item 1S, 1 and 2. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I move to approve consent agenda items 1S, 1 and 2.
Is there a second? Councilmember Boyette. Discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, if all in favor of the motion, which is for approval, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously with the exception of Councilmember Joy, who I was listening to very carefully, and she didn't say a word. She has met the requirements for abstaining. That concludes then item number 1 and brings us to item number 2, the only item on our regular agenda, and our planning director, Wyatt Friday, is moving to the podium. So.
There's no break, Mayor? We're not going to take a break?
Yeah, if you want, we can take a half-hour break or something. No, okay, we'll press ahead, counting on your bladders to be able to handle it. Chris, before I turn it over to Wyatt, anything from you?
Well, I guess I would just say at a high level, as you heard with public comment, the issue of getting residents living downtown, I think, is the most significant improvement we can make in our downtown. For many decades, we worked really hard in the economic development arena and as cities to bring businesses downtown. That wasn't a bad effort, that was important. But I think the shift over this past decade really has been the recognition that if you have people living downtown, that will promote as much as anything businesses being downtown. And when people are living downtown, they're walking, their eyes, all the things that you've heard. So absolutely consistent with the public comment as a critical part of a healthy downtown. And so I'm excited to see the project. We've been excited to work through the review of it. And I guess I would say at a high level, what we maybe need to do to incentivize development in that partnership today is okay if that changes over time. In fact, hopefully it will. I mean, if we had truly a thriving downtown at all levels, we would be having a different discussion. So one of the things I've witnessed in my career is the idea of really wanting to be consistent. Well, if we gave somebody something 5 years ago, shouldn't we be consistent with what we give them today? I would tell you that does not need to be the case. We're trying to be a catalyst to our economy downtown. That's the whole impetus for the tax income finance district. So this is an exciting project, exciting opportunity to I think for many, many decades, maybe a significant residential new construction project in the downtown. So I think with that, let's turn it over to Mehmet.
Mehmet.
Mayor and council, good evening. Can you hear me just fine?
Yes, you sound great.
Perfect. Okay, yes. So, Development Director with the Downtown Billings Partnership, presenting a tax increment financing project for you tonight. And the picture you see in front of you is a rendering of what the final project and the final site will look like when everything is said and done. This is looking at it from First Avenue North. However, what we'll be talking about tonight is Phase 1, which is the further away from me tower, which is also the eastern tower on that site. So an aerial view of the location, again, on First Avenue between North 23rd Street and North 24th Street. On the eastern side is next door or across the street from the Cushing Terrell Architects building, and also the Griffin Sawyer building right behind it. And then on Montana Avenue, it's in front of or behind Chow Mambo and Uber Brew. The Phase 2, which is the future part of that project, is the next door half right behind or in front of the Buffalo Block Steakhouse business. Again, tonight we're talking about Phase 1, so the property is being split in 2 phases, and that's the project that we'll be talking about tonight. Current condition of the building, it's a single-story building. Most recently, as mentioned earlier, was occupied by the Wayland Tire business, and then they relocated, so it's been vacant since then, since 2019. Pardon the black blobs or censorship. I was covering my bases and covering the vehicles that were in the pictures. But as you can see, it's it's underutilized, not to the best use that can be leveraged for the city. And so the idea is to tear it down and rebuild it into a 5-story building with now, I understand, if I'm correct, that some of the red brick will be salvaged and repurposed into the new building as well. And I'll share in the next slides how and where exactly in that building. But that's currently what it looks like and where it's sitting. The idea is, again, this is a picture of the entire project, but the subject tonight is phase 1 inside the yellow box. And so the northeast corner of that building, that's the part that will be salvaged out of that single-story building and will become a business, while the rest of the building is the residential property. 5 stories tall. The first floor, or the ground level, besides the business, will be primarily the lobby of the building and then parking that can be accessed from North 23rd Street, as well as some additional parking on the alley side of the building, as mentioned earlier. Second, third, fourth, and fifth floor are the residential units. When we initially began this conversation, it was going to be at least 32 residential units. Now it's looking like it's going to be more like 36 residential units, which is nice. More added benefit to that need and demand that we have. As stated earlier, also all with their individual balconies, adding to that natural surveillance atmosphere. And then, as you see from the rendering, there's a green space, some landscaping, some green space accessibility, both on the in the format of a patio and a gazebo, and then also a rooftop on top of that business. These spaces are not only going to be utilized by the tenants of the building and the business, but also a community space. The idea is to create some sort of energy and vibrancy within that block and connectivity between First Avenue North and Montana Avenue. Of course, though, there will be some fencing and ability to lock up the facility at later hours of the evening for the safety of the tenants. And then, here's a breakdown of the eligible expenses and categories that the board approved and the recommendation with each item, and then as well as the corresponding chapters of the MCA that match those items. If it's hard to read from where you're sitting, you'll see site demo, prep, utility soil removal, fire suppression systems, concrete for the public sidewalks and drives and front patio area, septed alley improvements, as well as lighting and door accessibility and windows at the ground level from the front of the building, the street frontage and the storefront on First Avenue. The landscaping that you saw, ADA compliance, utilities, and the glass and metal siding of the ground level of the building as part of the facade of that building. And then a little bit of the system development fee as well. All of that brings it to the recommended amount, which I forgot to mention, it was stated in the previous picture also, the total project of the phase 1 is a little over 11 million, and the TIF ask is almost 1.7, which puts it in that roughly 14% of the total project, so well within the city's preferred threshold. And then the reimbursement will be in 5 disbursements over the course of 5 fiscal years following the year in which the project is completed, which we're looking at about a couple of years for the construction of the project, so after that. And then here's the project by the numbers, and this is also just to be in consistency and unification with the eBird and SBird in terms of the format of presenting these numbers and what the current taxable value is and what is the projected or estimated increase. And then the commercial rate, which hasn't changed for many years, and then that, as a result, the annual tax increment projection, which then, based on these numbers, we're looking at a return on investment in about 14 years, but that doesn't look into also reappraisals of the building down the road, so it might be a shorter period of time as well. And that brings us to the merits, which again were discussed a lot earlier today. But obviously, this answers to the housing priorities stated in the urban renewal plan of the downtown area, the DBA strategic plan, the eBird and downtown housing study. It eliminates a vacant and blighted building and changes its use in it to a much more productive and appropriate way. Complements the business growth in that area, both on Montana Avenue and on First Avenue. And then activates that space per the urban renewal plan, complies with the MCA and the city TIF policy, the first of its kind, I believe, in decades in terms of a new build of that type and that size. And so we're very hopeful and anticipating much more development around that neighborhood, specifically in the immediate blocks nearby. And then obviously, again, as stated earlier, supports public safety efforts and initiatives from just that activity that you have at the street level and the natural surveillance from occupying the building in multiple layers. And with that, I'll open it up to comments, questions, concerns, and I do have the applicants with me here too if you have any specific questions for them.
Thank you very much, Mehmet. Questions for Mehmet or Max Griffin, and his organization is here as well. Councilmember Neese.
Thank you. Mehmet, by the way, thank you for putting a list together, matching the other. That's I know the prior councils has really wanted that, and it's great to see that. I do have a question because, I've looked through these pictures. They look great, and I'm reading some of the material, and you made some things, a comment I want to zero in on. This is phase one. Mm-hmm. And so when we're looking at these pictures, it looks like everything's going to be built with this proposal, but it's not. Do I understand that correctly? And so I'm okay with that, but more importantly, I think I may not be okay with is, what is going to be demolished? Are we going to have half of an ugly structure with this brand new structure here? Or are we going to have everything raised and then have a nice new structure with, a vacant lot until it's developed for phase two?
Thank you, Councilman Neese. And applicant here is to correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe the plan is to, while constructing phase one, to use the square footage where phase two is as a staging area for phase one. All the equipment and construction material that's going to be there to construct phase one. Once phase one is complete, then they would move on to phase two. But yes, you are correct in the assessment that this is only looking at that one tower of the project tonight.
Okay, quick follow-up then, Mayor.
Please.
So what will we see? What will we see during these several years where phase two, or the I guess it would be the west side of the property? Mm-hmm. What will we see there for 4 or 5 years? Will they enhance it so that it's not an eyesore like it is today? What will we see on that? Can we
Max, would you like to comment on that?
Max Griffin Development. To answer your question, Mehmet was correct. We're going to use the existing yellow building on the west side for staging materials and stuff while the first building is being built. Believe it or not, there is theft on construction sites in Billings. And so that's a more secure environment for that. Once this first building is done, we're going to demolish the second building, and hopefully at that time we can move forward with phase two.
Go ahead, get a follow-up?
Yeah, so will you enhance that building a little bit? Will you make it look better, paint it, just to make it, because right now it just looks awful. Are you going to do any improvements to that building so that while you're building this, at least that portion of it's improved?
We had no plans on doing any improvements on that building.
Thank you.
Okay, council members Boyett, Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, you showed 2 pictures of 2 buildings. Are you going to come back in 3 years and want another 1.7 million for the phase 2?
Yes.
That's the right answer. So can I follow up, Mayor?
Go ahead.
So Matt, as a past banker, are you going to tie up too much money in one project? Can you give me your thoughts about that much money being used for one project versus sharing it among many, many projects?
Excellent question. Yeah, Councilman Boyette. And so, and I believe we exchanged some emails earlier about somewhat similar to this topic. But when the Downtown Billings Partnership last year did a strategic planning meeting, and multi-use, multi-purpose developments came to the top in terms of priorities of how we want to leverage TIF dollars and how we want to prioritize the allocation of TIF dollars. So you'll probably see a larger percentage awarded to developments like that. It's not to say that we're going to deny everything else. We'll consider everything else, but this will take precedence and priority in these allocations. But then also in terms of this project in particular, it will depend on the fund, the health of the fund down that road. As I mentioned, it's going to be a 2-year construction, and then after that, it's a reimbursement of 5 years. And so, what does the fund look like then, and can we support a project of that size at that time? So that's what we'll be looking at.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. This item doesn't have a public hearing, and I'm not trying to cut off questions at all, but I'd like to go ahead and put a motion on the table for approval.
Feel free. We can continue our discussion afterwards.
Discussing. I move to approve the tax increment financing assistance from Downtown Urban Renewal District to Griffin Development for a mixed-use 32 or 36 unit residential apartment building project located at 2316 First Avenue North, up to $1,693,050. $1,693,050 with conditions of approval as recommended by the DBP board.
Second.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Neese. Okay, you have a motion before you. Discussion now on the motion. Councilmember Shaw, you'll speak to it. Councilmember Owen?
Yes, thank you. I just want to speak to the motion. Hopefully I don't think we have to super convince anybody at this table that downtown housing is just so critical. I feel like this was critical years ago, and the pandemic seems to have just escalated this problem rapidly. And so I feel like, to me, this is a really exciting project. I can't remember who said this in public comment, but my hope is that other developers will see this. This will be a model that can be replicated so we can actually get more of the residential units downtown that we need.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Owen?
I think this question is for Max. I think given the urgency of everything we've heard tonight, I think this is a great project, but 2024 is sort of a bummer. Is there anything other than bags of money that would make it go faster?
You know, I honestly wish there was something, but construction in itself is tough to get people to move things faster. We've been going forward with the plans as best we could. We still got about 6 months of planning, engineering to be ready to start construction. That's an 18-month process in a good construction market. I don't see anything. Our hope is that the response that we get from the community is great and we can get some reservations up front. The nice thing about this concept, that building was designed to go on a quarter block. So we could quickly build phase 2 without any engineering delays or those kind of things. Or we've made offers on other properties so you could actually do a third building if everything works out as we plan. Our biggest fear right now is construction costs are like this.
Can I follow up? So you sort of hinted at my kind of follow-up question. How much of this timeline is contingent on people indicating an interest in living here?
Oh, none of that. Okay. We're building phase 1. Okay. Phase 2, absolutely. Okay. We don't have the support for the project. Phase 2 will not happen.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, Councilmember Ripsis.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this project. I think it's going to be a strong addition to downtown, and thank you for bringing that forward and for taking the risk on doing it. But I want to be realistic here. This is 30 apartment units coming up, 2+ years from now. This is not going to make a dent in our housing issues. I'd like to see more aggressive use of the downtown TIF and eBird TIF as well to go after properties and get them prepped for development and keeping in mind the whole range of affordability as well, because these are going to be great units, but they're aimed at a particular segment. We've got needs across the spectrum, so we're going to have to do a lot more, a lot faster to address our challenges. But I do like this project, and I'm eager to see it go.
Thank you very much. Further discussion, Councilmember Purington?
Max, my biggest concern with this is the parking. Mehmet touched on it a little bit, because you're gonna have retail space on the ground floor, and then above that, or below, well, just around it, then you're gonna have the parking. So what is your projection for parking?
In the parking garage, we have 37 parking spots. Right now, we have tentatively planning 36 units. We wanted to make sure we had one parking space for every unit in there. We have 2,000 square feet of retail there. It could be, we'd love to have a restaurant, say we need more parking. Could be an office building. We just don't know yet. But you're absolutely right. We have to stay focused on making more parking available down in that whole area. Right now, this building's sitting empty, and we let anybody who wants to park there for free because there's such a demand for that space. Are we creating a problem? We're eliminating some parking spots for other people. That is an issue that we need to address, certainly, quickly if we can.
Councilmember Gillick?
Yes, very much supportive of this project, and maybe to alleviate some of Councilmember Purrington's concerns about parking, I can just say that we've had projects that we've helped develop on Montana Avenue, just a little further to the west, that 19 apartments, no off-street parking whatsoever, and they filled up immediately. What you tend to have happen when you in a downtown environment is having one car per household is a dwelling unit is great. That is is going to be helpful and probably essential in terms of this market. But you have people who work downtown and they keep their business parking spot they already had. They just keep it parked there or in parking garages, and so there's a greater utilization you find. So I think this project will be. I don't foresee a big problem, I guess, with that, and so I'm really excited about it.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Bernice.
Thank you, Mayor. Max, these are going to be apartments, probably not the typical affordable apartment we have, but it's going to bring a good clientele down to downtown business. Have you considered doing condos on this, or will phase 2 maybe incorporate condos to actually have that permanent resident downtown as opposed to renters?
Great point. We actually have a third property downtown that will, if you saw in our information, that will be coming out as a condo or small patio home venture there as well. Building 2 could be condos. The concern was when you did a building, we were actually talking about splitting this building, rental and condos, 2 different groups. And so the concern was that you really couldn't intermix that effectively. And so building 2 could be condos as well as rentals. But we have a third project, a smaller project that we think would be strictly condos.
Okay, Mayor, another quick follow-up. Just an idea, I know you've thought about this, related to the parking issues. I've seen several projects back east in larger cities where they actually have a development like this, and the development owns a car or 2 cars, and the renters actually rent it out. So from time to time, they have a car share arrangement, and then you don't need, so you have a whole lot more parking available because now you don't need a car per resident. They all share it, and so that's a good idea. I will support this side. This is a great opportunity for downtown. These are kind of projects, Max, thanks for coming back. It's a large risk that you're taking. We're helping out a little bit with this, kind of soften that risk, but I think that's going to be a win downtown. Looking forward to as soon as you can get this done. Also, phase 2 sounds great. If you can just put a little lipstick on that pig as you're using it, that would be great. Just to kind of spruce it up a little bit, not a lot, but it would be nice to kind of at least get that cleaned up. And one last comment, Mayor Mehmet, when will we see a project with the old camera store come forward to us? Because that is an eyesore in the city.
I just want to comment on one thing. That's a great idea, Roy. I hadn't thought of that before. This council's provided 2 really good ideas. Ed provided the other one on retaining the northeast corner of that red brick. We had discounted that, and he brought it back up, and now we're implementing that in the design. So I thank you both for both those great ideas.
Councilman Neese, stay tuned for very soon.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Yep, Councilmember Boyette?
After reviewing this, I'm thinking we got a good deal on the Stillwater building for $13.5 million.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just chime in with my points, which are a bit obvious, which is that for decades we've been chasing projects like this, and this hits the target smack dab in the bullseye. As Chris was saying, we want housing first. Want to keep the horse before the cart, and housing is the horse. So very exciting, much appreciated, well worth the investment by city TIF dollars, in my opinion. Perhaps not, I'm not going to make that commitment on phase 2. This is proof of concept. We need to encourage other people, show that this works. If it's a no-brainer, and I hope you make lots of money, that's going to be less appealing on phase 2. If it's not necessary. We may want to invest those dollars someplace else to keep the momentum going, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I tried to find out when the last residential development was done from the ground up in downtown Billings. I have yet to been able to determine that. It was decades ago. I'm not sure that anybody in this room was around when that was constructed, whatever it was. So it's been decades, and so we've got to reset the market. We've got to establish the downtown residential market, not just for refurbishing of existing buildings, but for new construction, and prove that that is economically viable. Once that is established, our developers are very good about getting on the bandwagon. But we've got to show them that there's a bandwagon to get on. And this is going to do it. So very exciting, much appreciated. Further discussion on the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Motion is for approval. Consistent with the staff recommendation that we have before us, we'll proceed to a vote if there is no further discussion. Okay, if the motion is clear then, all in favor of the motion, which is for approval, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Go forth and prosper. That brings us then to public comment on non-agenda items. So if anybody is here with us tonight and would like to comment on something that was not on our agenda tonight, this is your opportunity. Just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Tell us your name and address up front. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items, something that was not on our agenda tonight? If so, go to the podium. Nobody's going to the podium. And Tony, I'm just going to ask you to confirm there is nobody online. And Kevin is shaking his head to confirm that there is no one on Zoom or telephone to offer public comment. So we will close the public comment period on non-agenda items. And anything in the way of council initiatives, council, before we adjourn. Council Member Tricky.
Sorry. Steve's asking about someone putting an ex-officio person on the Big Sky Economic Development Board. I wanted to follow up with something that Councilmember Yakowicz kind of started as he was walking away, and that's for us to coordinate a little bit better in terms of all the different organizations that we should be doing, being involved with and stuff like that. So I thought the easiest way to do that was I would just start a spreadsheet and share it with everybody else, and we can just start adding the things that we've got on there and find the ones that we don't have and build from there.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, Councilmember Tricky, the good news is we actually have a list. It's a little dated, so I'll make sure, well, now you have it. I won't say how old that is. Late 1800s, I think, something like that. But it would be good.
There's only one person on here or two people on here.
It's still on. Okay, I said it was dated. We'll do that so that people can kind of look to see what the opportunities are, and then we'll ask people to choose. We don't have a good selection process. I just recommend whoever pays the mayor the most, should, prioritize that way. No, I didn't say that. This is not being recorded. But we do need to just think of that process. So, Councilmember Shaw?
I was just going to suggest that maybe the timing is perfect to spend the next month getting that list together, and then maybe that could be included as part of our priority session.
Great.
Throw that to the facilitator to help us work that out.
Yep, that would be great. Thank you very much. And Councilmember Tricia, it's great if you would drive that forward. Wynette Maddox keeps lists of all of that, and she's the source of that list, and she may have a more up-to-date list. So, okay, anything else in the way of council initiatives before we adjourn? Don't see anyone? We're adjourned. Thank you.
We haven't had
the